The table was empty without him, but my ex filled the seat instead. Asterisk the invitations. Echo Olivia Mercer stared at the email, her thumb hovering over the screen. The annual reunion dinner. 10 years since graduation. She hadn't attended last year. The grief still too raw, the absence too palpable. But Penelope had been persistent this time. We miss you, Liv. It wouldn't be the same without you. Irony. The irony wasn't lost on Olivia. Nothing had been the same since Noah died 3 years ago. His laughter, which used to anchor their gatherings, had been silenced in an instant on a rainy highway. The table had felt empty without him last year, so empty that she couldn't bear to see the vacant chair where he always sat, telling stories that had them laughing until their sides ached. "Are you going to respond to that today?" her assistant, Ramona, asked, poking her head into Olivia's office at Harrington Publishing. "I'm thinking," Olivia replied, setting down her phone. The manuscript before her romance novel about second chances seemed to mock her indecision. "Think faster. You have a meeting with marketing in 15 minutes. Ramona placed a coffee on her desk and retreated. Olivia sighed and typed a quick reply. "I'll be there." She would regret it later, probably, but something about reaching. The decade milestone made refusing feel like another kind of loss. 3 weeks later, she stood outside Salvatore's, smoothing down her navy dress. Through the window, she could see them already gathered Penelope's wild curls, Daniel's animated gestures, Fiona's elegant profile. The familiar sight made her heart ache with contradictory emotions. Longing and apprehension, nostalgia and dread. "You came," Daniel Rivera said, spotting her first as she approached the table. He stood to embrace her, his cologne familiar and comforting. "I came," she echoed, forcing a smile. It was then that she noticed. Someone was sitting in Noah's seat, the chair at the head of the table, that had remained respectfully empty, even before his death, as if their group had always known it belonged to him. Her eyes adjusted to the restaurant's dim lighting, and recognition hit her like a physical blow. Julian Reeves, her other ex, is the one who came after Noah, the one she'd dated during her fumbling attempts to move forward, the one whose patience had eventually run out when he realized he was loving, someone who couldn't love him back, not while Noah's ghost still occupied all the empty spaces in her heart. "Olivia," Julian said, half-rising from Noah's chair. "It's good to see you." He looked different, his dark hair slightly longer, a neatly trimmed beard now framing his jawline. The same warm brown eyes, though, watching her with an unsettling mixture of caution and hope. "Julian," she managed. "I didn't know you'd be here." An awkward silence descended, broken by Penelope's too bright voice. "Isn't it great? The whole gang back together." Not the whole gang, Olivia thought, but didn't say. "Here, sit next to me." Fiona patted the chair beside her, opposite Julian. Olivia sank into it gratefully. Accepting the glass of wine, Daniel immediately poured her. "2 reunions," he toasted, raising his glass. Everyone clinked glasses, the sound brittle in Olivia's ears. Julian's eyes met hers briefly over the rim of his wineglass before looking away. "So, Liv, tell us everything." Penelope leaned forward eagerly. "How's the publishing world treating you? Still rescuing terrible manuscripts and turning them into bestsellers?" Olivia latched on to the familiar topic, grateful for the distraction. "Still trying. You wouldn't believe what crossed my desk last week." As she spoke, she couldn't help noticing how comfortable Julian seemed in Noah's place, how the others unconsciously oriented toward him as they once had, toward Noah. How Penelope touched his arm when laughing at something he said, the easy way he signaled the waiter for another round of drinks. In the year she'd been gone, Julian had somehow stepped into the vacuum Noah left behind. And judging by the table's dynamics, everyone seemed perfectly fine with that. Everyone except her. Ghosts and wineglass reflections, the appetizers arrived. Small plates of bruschetta and calamari that Olivia barely tasted. She was too busy watching Julian, trying to reconcile the man before her with the one she'd pushed away 18 months ago. That Julian had been raw, desperate for her to let him in. This one seemed self-possessed, comfortable in his own skin. "Remember when Noah convinced the campus security that we were filming a documentary?" Daniel laughed, passing the breadbasket. "Got us out of that trespassing charge in the old science building." His serious face was so convincing, Fiona added, smiling, even had that fake press badge he'd made in the library. The mention of Noah sent a familiar pang through Olivia's chest, but it was Julian's reaction that surprised her. He didn't look uncomfortable or jealous as stories of Noah surfaced. Instead, he smiled with genuine warmth, as if appreciating the memory of someone he'd respected. He was always quick on his feet, Julian said, swirling his wine. Remember? The graduation after-party when the police showed up? Penelope snorted. And Noah pretended it was his birthday, so they'd just tell us to keep it down instead of shutting it down. He even got them to sing to him, Daniel added. Olivia's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. This was a story she hadn't heard. Noah's story that had happened without her during the semester she'd studied abroad in Florence. It struck her suddenly that Noah had existed in moments she hadn't witnessed, had been loved by these people independently of her. And somehow Julian knew this story, while she didn't. You weren't there for that one, Liv, Penelope said, noticing her expression. It was spring semester senior year. Right, Olivia nodded, setting down her glass too hard. Florence. Memory surfaced. Noah's face on her laptop screen during one of their video calls, his excitement as he told her about his acceptance to law school. When I'm a hotshot attorney and you're a famous editor, we'll look back at these months apart and laugh, he'd said. They never got that chance. The acceptance letter had still been pinned to his refrigerator when she'd cleaned out his apartment after the accident. Olivia's the reason I applied to the publishing internship, actually, Julian said, drawing her back to the present. She made the whole industry sound so fascinating, I did. The words escaped before she could stop them. Julian's eyes met hers. We talked about it on our third date. That little Italian place in the village. You were so passionate about helping writers find their voice. She remembered that night, remembered thinking, fleetingly, that she could possibly fall for this man someday, if she just gave herself permission. Julian's been our unofficial photographer this past year, Fiona said, showing Olivia her phone. Look at these shots from Penelope's birthday hike. The photos were undeniably beautiful, candid moments capturing their friends in natural light, laughing against a backdrop of autumn foliage. Julian had always had an eye for composition. She'd forgotten that about him. To absent friends, Julian said suddenly, raising his glass in a toast. The words hung in the air, and Olivia felt a flash of anger. Dare he acknowledge Noah's absence while sitting in his place? But as everyone else raised their glasses solemnly, she realized the toast wasn't performative. There was genuine respect in Julian's eyes. To Noah, she added quietly, raising her own glass. To Noah, the table echoed. The waiter arrived with their entrees, momentarily breaking the tension. As conversation shifted to Fiona's recent promotion, Olivia found herself stealing glances at Julian. Every time, his eyes seemed to find hers a second before she looked away. I need some air, she announced after finishing her meal, pushing back her chair. Outside on the restaurant's garden terrace, the cool evening air cleared her head slightly. The fairy lights strung through the trees reminded her of Noah's apartment. How he'd hung similar lights across his ceiling because she once mentioned liking them? Olivia. She didn't need to turn to know Julian had followed her. Not now, Julian. Then when? His voice was soft, but insistent. You've been avoiding looking directly at me all night. She turned, finding him closer than expected. What do you want me to say? Congratulations on seamlessly slipping into the vacancy. Pain flashed across his face. Is that what you think I've done? Conversations in the garden? I don't know what to think, Olivia admitted, wrapping her arms around herself despite the mild evening. It's jarring to see you there in his spot. Julian leaned against the terrace railing, creating distance between them. I didn't choose the seating arrangement if that's what you're thinking. Daniel did. Daniel. This surprised her. Daniel had been Noah's roommate for 3 years. He invited me tonight, Julian continued. Specifically asked me to come, actually. I wasn't sure it was a good idea, but he insisted. The fairy lights reflected in his eyes, making them look almost amber instead of brown. Olivia remembered noticing that same effect once before, on a winter evening when they'd walked through a holiday market together. She'd almost reached for his hand that night, but stopped herself. It had felt too much like betrayal. Why would Daniel do that? She asked. Julian sighed, running a hand through his hair. He thought it was time to mend fences between all of us. There are no fences to mend. We just ... didn't work out. Liv, he said, the familiar nickname catching her off guard. I've been seeing someone. Her stomach dropped unexpectedly. Penelope seems quite attached to you. Is it not Penelope? He interrupted with a small laugh. A grief counselor? For the past year, you're not grieving, she said automatically, then winced at how cold it sounded. Not like you are. He acknowledged. But I needed to understand. What you were going through? What I did wrong? You didn't do anything wrong, she said quietly. I wasn't ready. I pushed too hard. Expected too much. He looked away toward the muted sounds of traffic beyond the restaurant. Wanted to replace what you'd lost instead of just ... being there while you figured it out. Before Olivia could respond, the terrace door opened and Fiona stepped out, elegant in her burgundy dress. Oh, sorry to interrupt, she said, glancing between them. Just wanted to let you know they're bringing out dessert soon. We'll be right in, Julian assured her. No rush, Fiona waved dismissively. By the way, Julian, that photographer friend of yours confirmed for the scholarship fundraiser next month. The Noah Harrison Memorial Scholarship is really happening. Olivia felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her feet. The what? Fiona's eyes widened as she realized her mistake. Oh, I thought. I assumed Julian had mentioned it. Julian looked uncomfortable for the first time that evening. I was going to tell you later, when there was more time to explain properly. Explain what, exactly? Olivia's voice had gone very quiet. Fiona, sensing the tension, backed toward the door. I should check on the dessert situation. Take your time out here. When she'd gone, Julian exhaled slowly. We started it last year. A scholarship in Noah's name at the law school he was going to attend. 4 students interested in public advocacy law like he was. We, the group. Mostly Daniel and me handling the paperwork, but everyone's contributed. Olivia felt a complicated mixture of emotions rising in her chest, gratitude, confusion, and something that felt uncomfortably like shame. While she'd been wrapped in her private grief, they'd been honoring Noah's memory in tangible ways. Why didn't anyone tell me? Julian's gaze was steady. Daniel said he tried. Said you weren't ready to talk about Noah in any context. She remembered the calls she'd ignored, the messages left unread. I needed space. I know. We all respected that. His voice was gentle. But we also needed to remember him in ways that felt meaningful. The scholarship seemed right. A realization dawned slowly. Julian wasn't sitting in Noah's place to replace him. He was helping keep Noah's memory alive among their friends in ways she hadn't been able to face. Truth in the Shadows, the walk to Monarch. The bar 2 blocks from Salvatore's was mercifully brief. Olivia found herself in the middle of the group, with Julian and Penelope leading the way, their heads bent together in conversation. The night air had turned cooler, and she pulled her light jacket tighter around her shoulders, Daniel said, falling into step beside her. You and Julian had a chance to talk. Briefly, she glanced at him. You invited him specifically. Daniel nodded, his expression unreadable in the streetlight shadows. Thought it was time. Time for what, exactly? For you two see that he's not the villain in this story. Daniel's directness had always been both his best and most challenging quality. Nobody is. They reached the bar and the conversation paused as they filed inside. Monarch was busier than Salvatore's had been, the Friday night crowd spilling. From the bar to the small dance floor where a local band was setting up, they found a corner booth, and Julian went to order the first round. He's changed, Olivia observed, watching him navigate the crowd at the bar. Not really, Daniel countered. You just never let yourself see him clearly. His words stung. That's not fair, isn't it? Daniel leaned closer, lowering his voice. Do you know who organized these reunions this past year? Who made sure we all stayed connected after you withdrew? The answer formed in her mind before he said it. Julian Daniel. Confirmed. He was the one who insisted we not let the group drift apart after Noah died, and especially after you two broke up. Olivia watched Julian laughing with the bartender, seemingly at ease in a way she hadn't managed to feel in 3 years. Would he do that after how things ended between us? Because he cares about these people. Daniel's gaze was challenging. It's about you too, whether you want to hear that or not. He's moving to London, Fiona interjected, sliding into the booth. With a fresh lipstick application. Just got the job offer last week? London? Olivia repeated. Surprised by how this news affected her, Daniel gave her a knowing look. Convenient timing, don't you think? You decide to rejoin the group, and he accepts a job overseas? Before she could process this, Julian returned with a tray of drinks. The conversation shifted to lighter topics: Penelope's disastrous blind date last month, Fiona's plans to adopt a dog, Daniel's promotion. Olivia participated automatically, but her attention kept drifting to Julian, seeing him through new eyes. When he excused himself to take a phone call, Daniel leaned across the table. There's something else you should know, he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. Those care packages you received after Noah died, the ones you thought came from all of us? She remembered them, books carefully chosen to match her taste, gourmet coffee, bath salts, handwritten notes of encouragement. They had arrived like clockwork, every 2 weeks for months. Mostly Julian, Daniel said. He organized them, got contributions from everyone, made sure they kept coming. Even when you weren't responding. But why would he? Because he understood what the rest of us didn't, Daniel interrupted. That grief doesn't follow a timetable. That sometimes the only thing you can do for someone is let them know they're not forgotten, even when they need to be alone. The band started to play a cover of an old song that Noah had loved. The familiar opening notes triggered a sense memory so vivid that Olivia could almost feel Noah's hand on the small of her back. Hear him singing slightly off-key. In her ear, he never tried to replace Noah, Daniel said, watching her face. He just tried to help you carry what was left. New reservations, morning sunlight streamed through the windows of Catalyst Coffee as Olivia waited, a ceramic mug warming her hands. She'd texted Julian late last night after returning to her hotel room, asking if they could meet before his afternoon flight to London. To her surprise, he'd agreed. The bell above the door jingled. Julian appeared, looking slightly rumpled in jeans and a gray Henley. He spotted her and navigated between the tables, sliding into the chair opposite hers. Thanks for coming, she said. He nodded, ordering a black coffee when the server approached. Daniel talked to you last night? He did. She traced the rim of her mug with one finger. Why didn't you tell me? About the care packages, the scholarship, all of it? Julian's coffee arrived, and he took a moment to add a single packet of sugar, stirring deliberately. Would it have made a difference? Back then, she considered this honestly. Probably not. That's why. He took a sip, studying her over the rim. It wasn't about getting credit. But after we broke up, our relationship ending didn't change how I felt about Noah, Julian said simply. Or the rest of the group. Or you, for that matter. The directness of this statement made her look away. London's a big move. It's a good opportunity. 2-year contract with my firm's international office. He set down his cup. I submitted the application 6 months ago, before I knew you'd be coming back. I wasn't implying yes you were. There was no accusation in his tone, just certainty. But it's okay. I probably would have wondered the same thing. The morning crowd ebbed and flowed around them, the coffee shop filling with students and remote workers setting up laptops. Ow! In the busy anonymity, Olivia found it easier to be honest. I was angry when I saw you sitting there, she admitted. In his chair? I know. But I was wrong about why you were there. Julian was quiet for a moment. Noah's place at the table will always be his, whether someone's sitting in that physical chair or not. I wasn't trying to take his spot in the circle. I was just trying to keep the circle from breaking. The simplicity of this truth made Olivia's eyes sting. I miss him still. Every day. You probably always will, in some way, Julian said. It's okay, you know. The scholarship wasn't about moving on from Noah. It was about making sure something of him moves forward. They finished their coffee in comfortable silence. When it was time for Julian to leave for the airport, they walked outside together. The morning was bright and clear, the kind of autumn day that Noah had loved best. Will you come back? After London, she asked. I don't know yet. His honesty was refreshing, but I'll be at next year's reunion, wherever I am. Daniel would hunt me down if I missed it. I'll be there too, she promised, surprising herself with how much she meant it. Julian hesitated, then reached out to briefly squeeze her hand. Noah would be glad about that. I think so too, she said, and for the first time. The thought didn't bring immediate pain. After he'd gone, Olivia found herself walking back toward Salvatore's. The restaurant was closed at this hour, but she pressed her face to the window. Looking at the empty tables inside, she could picture them all, their Penelope's wild gestures, Fiona's elegant posture, Daniel's easy smile, Julian's thoughtful gaze, and yes, Noah's absence, a presence in itself. She stepped back, taking out her phone. Opening her messaging app, she created a group text to the others. Should we reserve the same table for next year? The responses came quickly. Penelope. Absolutely. Fiona, I'm in. Daniel. Already on it. Called this morning. And finally, from Julian. Save me a seat. Any seat. Olivia smiled, looking once more at the restaurant before turning away. The table would never feel exactly right without Noah. But perhaps that was the point, not to find someone to fill his empty chair, but to recognize that his place in their circle remained, even when the chair itself was occupied by someone else. Even when that someone was a person he'd once pushed away for trying to help her heal. She typed one more message. Tables reserved. All seats saved. Even yours, Jules. It wasn't a new beginning exactly, but it was a new reservation. A future where memories could exist without crushing weight, where old loves remained honored while new connections formed, where empty chairs weren't just reminders of loss, but also invitations to gather again.